and this topic, nutrition and emotions, unveiling the connection. So this, as you will have read, this very interesting link between the emotions, eating choices, but we are living in such a world of conflicting nutritional advice. So today we will be joined by Dr. Namrata, who will share the knowledge for making informed decisions, because each one of us has our own physical body to understand as well. So very beautifully, she explains many aspects to make it personal, so we can make informed decisions, but also insights to empower us to put what we know is right into place. I'll just introduce Namrata. Dr. Namrata is practicing in Cambridgeshire as a general practitioner since 2017, and she's currently pursuing naturopathic nutrition diploma. She's also a meditator and blends her experience of this lifelong practice with her medical expertise. So looking forward to, and thank you so much, Namrata, for bringing this subject, which I know is very close to your heart. So great to be welcoming you on behalf of everyone. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, it's close to my heart, and I hope I'm not going to be over speaking or getting over enthusiastic. So I'll try and keep it slow and measured for the translator as well. So it's very nice to see you all, and Happy New Year. I know how it feels now when I can't see anybody, just Sarah, but everybody's a name. Yeah. So I think it's a very great timing to discuss this topic, as many of us, including myself, we're trying to eat better, we're trying to exercise more, especially post-holidays. And we also know that we start with a lot of enthusiasm, but then eventually we cool down and we become a bit bored, or we can't maintain it. And even by the end of January, probably, and I'm speaking for myself. And it's, I think, finding the connection between our emotion and nutrition will help us clarify this a little bit for us. I hope you can hear me okay. I've got a little bit soothed in my mouth because of the throat. Maybe you've realized this by now, just to avoid coughing. So yeah, they are both huge topic, nutrition and emotion, and I've made quite a few notes so I don't miss anything, to tell you. But we can appreciate that there's a lot of confusing information, lots of information, but they may not be personalized to us, to our bodies. They sometimes are contradictory. One nutritionist says one thing, the government guidelines say something else, and we're like, which one do we follow? And coming to government guidelines, 5 a day in the UK, is it really adequate? And the thing with guidelines is they're geared to healthy population. And then we think, what is health really? Is it just people who are physically healthy? Because now there's so much more, emotional health, mental health, there is social health and relationship as well. So we have to take all of that into account. So yes, there are many things that influence our mood. And of course, our mood also influences our eating habit. And some may be wondering, but food, how does my food influence my mood? So we'll take a look at a few examples, which I'm sure many people have faced. So the common one is, when we get a bit tired and hungry, we get irritated, a bit edgy, and we call it hangry, to our colleagues, so they can forgive us for being angry. The other one is, when we feel low, we tend to comfort eat. But on the other hand, when we are excited, it's holidays, Christmas, we also overeat. Then we feel bloated, we feel tired, sluggish, post-Christmas slump where everybody sleeps after. The other one, parents would recognize the children, when they have sweets, they get hyperactive. But also these, Coke Zero, Pepsi Max, they may not have any sugar, but the sweetener, it's worth pointing out, it has the same effect on the body in terms of how our body reacts. It's it spikes when the sweetener is high, and then we can crash and we can have cravings after. And then the other one, women, post-menopausal symptoms or even premenstrual tension. Many of the women on here would recognize that, you know, every month you get edgy, you get angry for no reason. And some people may have maybe research about hormone balance and how food, what we eat and don't eat, can affect that. So yeah, women, we don't have it easy, do we? Then we have people who live alone, common one. They will say, oh, it's so hard to cook for one person because, you know, it's just easy to have takeaways, easy to microwave food. Until, I mean, this keeps going until you get some physical health symptoms. Then you go to your doctors. They'll say, take these, you know, stomach pills, take the acid reflux tablet. But until we change the habit, the problem persists. So it's easy to link our physical symptoms with our food, but how about the emotional symptoms? You know, when we feel sad, we feel a bit low, sometimes edgy, we may not always connect to our eating habit, and you know, we'll explore this. We have yo-yo dieting, you know, and that comes with the yo-yo emotions, I call it. So we go on a diet, we lose weight, we feel fantastic, we can't maintain it, then we gain it, and then our emotions change. But the thing to point out here is when we're going on a diet, it's good to, you know, be aware if we're depriving ourselves from certain nutrients that can affect our mood and also physically, you know, affects our hair, nail, and all sorts. The other one is the yo-yo gym, yo-yo exercise. So, you know, gym back and forth, personal experience, a lot of these. So we may find that even we're in perfect form, we go to the gym, but we still lose motivation, we're unhappy. But on the other side, we get, you know, gym injuries, ankle, back pain, back injuries, and then we can't exercise, then our mood change, we feel unhappy. Some people would probably, you know, they love to eat so much that they will go to the gym just to burn it off. And of course, you know, food is not just fuel. But these people, if they're not able to exercise, it's very hard for them to think of, you know, we call it dieting. However, they may look at it as deprivation. But when we tell them that, you know, some people who can't exercise, we make them realize that if you eat right, you can in fact be eating more and still lose weight. You know, that gives them a lot of hope because it ends this, you know, the starving feeling, it ends the craving, and people do lose weight. So we'll explore that. Now, before we carry on, what we'll do is we'll take a moment just to reflect on what we've eaten today. And, you know, just play a movie in our head, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just light and easy way, no judgment, just watch what you've eaten. And when you watch what you've eaten, so what was there, how were you eating, where were you? And you might be, you know, at your desk or at your dining table, you might be scrolling through our mobile, you know, the mobile in front of the TV, or even in front of the work computer. Sometimes you might be stressing out doing your work and then gulping something down. You may be talking to your colleagues, family, perhaps complaining, you know, while you're eating. Some people may have the usual coffee, and some of you probably might be eating consciously. You may know exactly what's in the food, why you're eating it, and you know, and you may even remember what you eaten. So if you don't remember anything you've eaten, that's fine. It's very normal. Now you can also imagine, you know, when you're eating the food, how the food goes in the mouth, how you're chewing it, and that the food is actually going into your stomach and getting digested. When it gets digested, so I'm sharing a screen here for you, you know, people who may not know a lot about the human body, which I think is quite rare. So when it does go into your stomach, it goes, you know, to your gut, it goes to your blood vessels, then it's all your organs in your body. And then we take the first, you know, the largest organ, for example, the skin, So the food that I have eaten, is it, repairing my skin, healing it, growing it, my hair, my nails? We think about, the amount of time we take in terms of our cosmetics and makeup and hair compared to the time, we take eating our food and preparing, for our skin, for example. The other organ we'll look at is how about our bones and muscles? So as we get older, our bones can get weaker, and we call it wear and repair. So it gets used, but it repairs itself. So the food I'm eating, is it actually helping to repair my bones, repair the structure, to keep my strength, to keep my balance, my flexibility, but also my immune system, because a lot of the blood, it starts in the bones. The other organ, the liver. So that's a detoxification organ. So we think during the day, we are breathing in all these pollution, we have bugs, bacteria, parasites, all of this ingesting the body, some through our skin. Is the food I ate supportive for the liver to help detox the liver? And I know, a lot of people would go to the heart and lungs and vital organs, but I've kind of touched on these organs. And it's worth pointing out that in Eastern medicine, so say for Chinese medicine, they look at liver as the emotional organ. So if you go to a Chinese doctor and you say, I get very angry or emotional, the first thing they'll say is, we need to detox your liver, and we think, because the liver does detoxify a lot of our things. And in the East, in Hindi, for example, we do tell people we love them so much with our liver. So we love them with our liver. So it translates as, jigri pyar or jigri yad. It's interesting. And the same with the bones as well. Sometimes, we tell people we love you so much to my bones, as in like to my core. So that's a Hindi thing. The haddi, they call it haddi yad, just for people who may want to know. And then finally, of course, the hormones, the glands, the brain, the nervous system, we associate that with our emotions and our feelings. So is the food I ate today, does that help to calm my brain, calm my nerves, and keep my memory bright and all of that? So I've just stopped sharing there. So I hope this was useful in making us think, when we eat, how does that actually affect every organ in our body? And maybe hopefully one may start getting a bit more conscious when they're eating, similar time to if we're putting makeup, like we said. Now let's take a look at the emotions specifically. We've talked about the main ones, so the sad, mad, bad, feeling guilty, happy, comfort, mixture of emotions. Sometimes there are no names for them. I just feel something, but I don't know how to put a name to it. And children are like that. They find it very hard to label emotions. So they might say, my chest hurts, my head is feeling dizzy, my belly is sinking. And they may not be physical pain, but it's the emotions. And for us as well, every time we say, I feel, that means there's an emotion, even if it's something physical. So, I mean, the thing, like I feel tired, I feel foggy, my brain feels foggy. Basically, I'm not feeling my enthusiastic self. Or I feel bloated, I feel cramps, I feel pain. Of course, there are physical things, and it's worth knowing why. But even science knows now that pain is actually coming from what they call the brain or the mind, and not necessarily from where you feel it. And we have a lot of conditions now where we don't have any reason for why we feel the pain, but they are very real. So they are the the fibromyalgia, the chronic pelvic pain syndrome, we have irritable bowel syndrome, and any other chronic pain where you've been to the doctors and essentially, they kind of said, well, you have to live with it. It's very real for you. It's just, it's coming from, from this hypersensitivity from the brain or the mind. And hence why things like distraction therapy or psychological therapy like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, can help with these things. Now, next, what we'll do is we'll look at what medical science says to us about our mood. And then we'll take a look at what the father of medical science says 2,400 years ago. And that will help open our mind to where we are now. So I'll share the screen again. Right, so medical science, what it tells us, our mood is influenced by neurotransmitters in our brain. And I've put a few of the common ones. Of course, there are many others, but the common ones are because they are linked to some of the medications some of us might be taking. So for example, serotonin, commonly prescribed SSRIs, it's linked to the serotonin. So serotonin, it's a neurotransmitter or a chemical messenger, that's what we call it. It's there to regulate our mood, makes us feel calm, and it then converts to melatonin, which helps us sleep. And both of them, they come from a protein called tryptophan. And of course, this is something that we can eat. And it's worth pointing out, people with premenstrual and postmenopausal mood swings, it affects, our progesterone, estrogen can affect our serotonin. So the other ones I've mentioned here, the dopamine, the reward feeling, a lot of people with Parkinson's meds will have this. Above that, there's the GABA receptors. So gabapentin is a painkiller. But things like magnesium can affect GABA, and it's to do with calming the nerve cells. I've also put at the bottom some of the vitamins and minerals, because things like iron, magnesium, B vitamins, if they're out of balance, they can affect our mood, but can cause kind of psychotic symptoms as well. So, people can get irritation, and we can have some psychosis, memory loss as well. Now, the trivia question is, we use this serotonin, to help our brain, but where does serotonin come from? As in, where is the majority of it? We've talked about the food, tryptophan, but in fact, 95% of serotonin comes from our gut, from our bowels. And it's interesting because we give people this SSRI, to help with the brain. And in fact, do we ask them, are you eating enough? Are you eating well, for your gut? But the other thing is, how important it is to look after our gut health, i.e. our food. But I wanted to mention about the medication. So the SSRIs, people would know, citalopram, sertraline, fluoxetine, very commonly prescribed. And why is it that in the last decade, especially, it's really the prescription has massively skyrocketed up, prescription like Smarties, I call them. And of course, some people definitely need it, and it does work. But I think a lot of it is due to this aggressive marketing by pharmaceutical, because they advertise things like, you feel low because of chemical imbalance in your brain. And then I have patients who come, young people especially, to say, I feel low because I have chemical imbalance. Can I have a tablet? And then you ask them what happened. So they'll tell you, yesterday my best friend had a go at me, or something to do with work, or, some trivial situations, but very important to them. And then we think, is that all it is? Is it that there's, we feel unhappy just because of some brain chemistry, some physical brain things going haywire? Or is it to do with something deeper, to do with our personalities, our mindset, our attitude, our experiences? And of course, we all know what the truth is, but but again, pharmaceutical companies advertising that to market their product, to make it successful. But the other thing is they downplay the side effects, which can be very serious physical side effects, but also things like they do numb your emotions. So yes, it may help you, but you might find that you don't get any strong emotions anymore, any strong normal emotions, you know. So when people are really happy or something bad's happened and you're supposed to feel sad and cry, you don't feel it. The other thing is they downplay on the natural remedies, you know, encourage people to seek help to find the root of the problem, because when we are low, we do want quick fixes. So sometimes people might associate that quick fix, take a tablet, and the natural remedies might be some talking therapy, which might take longer. And again, coming to the NHS, we all know how long the wait is, 9 months, a year sometimes, but getting a pill from your doctor, you might get one straight away. And I just wanted to add that, you know, even like for blood pressure, for example, we take, you know, blood pressure tablets, of course it works, but it took the medical team until 2023, last year, to incorporate meditation in its guidelines. Otherwise, they wouldn't recognize it. It would be, you know, you go to the doctors, just get a tablet, and yes, the nurse might talk to you about lifestyle things, but to really get to the core of it and tell people it is your lifestyle, you may not need medication for longer, but many people are on these medication for life, and of course they do have their side effects. So that's that. That's not that. Let's go back. So yes, this is what I was going to show you, this gut-brain axis. So we talk about how serotonin comes from our gut mainly. So all it means is, just like our brain controls our gut or influences our gut, our bowel movement, the gut as well influences our brain in terms of our mood. So looking after our food is important. And people may have heard of this gut microbiome. So these are actually the good bacteria that lives in our gut, and they do influence our mood. And you will see a lot in the media. We do talk a lot about, you know, how to keep a healthy gut microbiome, not just for our physical health, but for our mental health as well. And we have the amount, you know, trillions of these good bacteria. In fact, they are about 150 times more than our own body cells. So what they say is our body has more good bacteria than our cells. So how important it is to look after these bacteria. And that correlates with antibiotics, because the antibiotics, you know, they do wipe some of the good bacteria. So yes, it is important to take antibiotics in some cases, but in other cases, we need to think, you know, hard, do we need them? Because they do impact on our mood as well, and we may not realize this. So other things I've put there, you know, when we say gut feeling, you know, like the sixth sense or our intuition, you know, we don't say brain feelings from our gut. And as you know, the other thing is gut is, our gut is the second brain, just because it's so closely linked with how we feel and our emotion. So next, that's the slide you've already seen, but we'll go back to this. So what the father of medicine said 2,400 years ago, all diseases begin in the gut, you know, all diseases, whichever. And we think of how many tablets do we take to treat all of these diseases, but do we in fact treat our gut? So looking at the latest WHO list of what are the top diseases, and we can see that they do start from the gut. So cardiovascular disease, a lot of it is lifestyle, type 2 diabetes. We have our gut, or, you know, our colorectal cancers, lack of fiber, especially in European countries, very, very common because our diet, very bland, lack of fiber. Respiratory system, and that includes infection, our immune system, our COVID, you know, people had COVID and we think, oh, how is that to do with my gut? So it's good to know that 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So if, you know, if you keep getting recurrent coughs and colds, it's worth looking at how we eat, because it has a huge impact. And there is a school of thought which a lot of the allopathic or Western medical people think is, there's these viruses and parasites and bacteria outside, and they then attacked us, and we have to fight them off. Hence why we take this medication. But this school of thought was by Louis Pasteur. He was a physician a long time ago. But during his time, there was another physician called Béchamp, and he said the opposite. These bacteria, parasite, viruses, they're just there. They coexist with us. It's our body. Are we strong enough to defend ourselves? So they might come, they might reside, and they might pass through. So if I am strong enough, then I want, yes, it may affect me a little bit, but not, to that extent. And in COVID, when we're looking back to the, people who were affected and people who were like seriously affected and passed, many of them had these comorbidities, especially obesity, cardiovascular, diabetes, food, gut-related problems. So that's worth pointing out. And in the top WHO list was also mental health. And we've discussed that, and we've discussed how, we prescribe these medication. And serotonin, we said 95% comes in our gut. And Hippocrates also said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. But of course, if we all keep using food as our medicine, nobody's going to pay for those medication and pharmaceutical companies, so marketing strategies. So we're going to move to the next one. And I think this is where we've all been looking forward to is, okay, I know about this science and all, but what can I do to help myself? How what food to help the mood, and what are the ones unhelpful? Is the food really serving its purpose? And this will be the first one I'll look at, because at least this is something we've already done with our reflection when we thought of, is the food I'm eating going to where it should go? And yeah, so let's start with this one first. So how am I eating? Is it being digested and passed for healing, growing, repairing? Or is it just rotting away? And yes, food does rot away in our gut, and they release toxins. So instead of the food helping me to repair, it may actually be stealing vital energy from my body. So my body is having to lose that energy to help repair, from the food. And how does that happen? So let's take a few examples. So first one, I haven't mentioned it here, but overeating. So when we overeat, for example, it actually, the body takes too much energy to digest that food, because apparently we should only be taking about 10% of our energy to digest food. But some people, I think most of us, probably use about 40 to 50% of our, with the amount of food we may eat and the snacking. But the other thing is this stress hormone. And yes, stress, or what we call chronic stress, we may look at stress as, something bad happens, I get triggered, and, and then I relax very quickly. We use this term, seeing the tiger comes and the body has to, fight it or flight it, as in run away. So our body is geared as using our energy to run away. But actually, lifestyle has become like this. It's become chronic stress. So we're constantly fighting, as in, like you're at work, the work emails you don't like, the colleagues, the rushing, we're overloaded with things, and it might become normal. We might think this is my life. We talk about, for me, for example, healthcare professionals or teachers, any profession, life has become chronic stress, and we live with it without realizing. But what's happening in the body is our cells is still producing those toxins and producing those chemicals that we need to fight and flight. But we're not fighting and we're not running away. We're just sat at our desk, fixed, and yet the hormones are being produced because we're stressed. And what I mean by that is, instead of, the food that we eat, the energy we get, instead of it going to repair our body and growth, it's going to the organs that should help us run away or fight. So our energy is directed away from digestion. So we don't produce enough of the digestive juices to digest the food. So food might just sit there, and we call it rot away. The other name for protein is a putrefaction. So it's rotting in the stomach. The other thing is the food is directed away from our immune system. Hence why people might notice when they are stressed, they can get recurrent cold symptoms, cold sores, for example, or even, flus and all. On this thing, we call, autoimmune disease, so thyroid problem, lots of, MS. There's this doctor called Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks a lot about how autoimmune diseases is very closely linked to chronic stress or trauma. And that might explain why, because if our body's constantly producing these toxins, it does affect our immune system. The other thing is, again, I keep talking about premenstrual tension, but, our energy is directed away from our hormones, our reproductive glands, so, all these menopausal symptoms and all. So we get more affected. The other story, when people say, I don't eat much, but I still put weight on, and you do feel sorry for them because their doctors would probably say, well, scientifically speaking, this is not true. If you eat a lot, if you don't eat much, you should really be losing weight. But, cortisol, which is released from stress hormone, this is your body's natural steroid. So you're not eating much, but you're stressed. So your body's producing its own steroid, which then releases sugars or fat, from your own body, and extra sugar is then converted to fat, and you keep putting weight on. And then the opposite to these fight and flight or sympathetic nerve is what we call the vagus nerve, the parasympathetic. The other name for it is rest and digest. So rest doesn't mean like, oh, I have to sleep and eat. No, it's basically we have to be at ease. We might be talking to people. It's just this happy feeling. I'm happy, I'm conscious, I'm enjoying the food, I'm aware, rather than doing work and thinking of this email and deadline and eating. And then lastly, I've put this fasting or housekeeping, because I know a lot of people might be acquainted with fasting. So what happens after we eat? We have these housekeepers in our body that mops up all the residue, all the toxins, help clear everything. And they will probably wait about, maybe you will eat again in about 4 to 6 hours. A bit like in a hotel, the guest checks out at 10 o'clock and you expect the other one to come at 3 p.m. So you have a lot of time to clean. But if your guest checks out at 10 a.m. and the next one is coming at 11 or 12, you might get a bit stressed and you're like, what's the point of cleaning? I might just let them stay in the same messy bedroom and bed sheets. And this is what our body does when we snack too soon. And of course, this doesn't apply to everybody, because I know there's some very rare and specific people who may need to snack, but that's very, individualized, different people. But most people, we don't need to snack if we're eating enough, because if our body is not doing the proper housekeeping, then the new food, the new snack that we eat would just create problems, toxins, because we haven't mopped up what we've eaten. Right. So I've put, things we can do to help. So eating consciously, awareness, ease, the things like breathing, vagus nerve exercises, and then meditation, which promote digestion and healing. Next, we look about the food unhelpful for the mood.
Just to remind, no, very good. Just to mention about the translation is slightly slower. Yep, it's good. Thank you.
Sorry, getting over enthusiastic. Hopefully, people are understanding. But we'll run through these ones and we can take some questions, I suppose. I do have quite a few things to talk about, but let's talk about this one. So unhelpful food. And we have heard of, junk food. Why do we call them junk? It's, sometimes we think, okay, it might be the calories, the extra fat and carbohydrates, but actually it's also the extra chemicals they put in them, the additives, the coloring, artificial sweeteners, and a lot of evidence now that can cause mood swings. They can have sleep disturbance, ADHD, headaches. Not to mention the cancer causing problem. And of course, the physical problems. Sometimes people have allergies, skin rashes, and we say, oh, I've stopped eating this, stop eating that, but I don't know what it is. And we may never know because, all these people who, when we do takeaways, they won't tell us exactly what's in there. They might just give you an E number, the coloring, but you don't know how much. And this is how food industry work. They don't care about, your health. They want to get your money. So they'll prepare it in a way that will target your senses. So it will smell good, it will appeal to your eyes, it will promote cravings. So then you can come back to it and pay them more. So we're thinking, why are we eating these things? And, food that are high in sugar, because sugar can also irritate our nerves and promote weight gain, as opposed to when we think of fats. I think we'll come to the fat thing in the next slide. But there's something we call trans fats. So repeated heating of oil. So think of your takeaway, your chippy. So every time you go to the chip place and you ask for, some chips, you don't know how often they've reheated the oil because they want to, save their money. But every time we heat oil, it becomes unstable and it releases toxins, or what we call free radicals. And they are toxic to our body. They can cause a lot of problem. We've talked about the rest, and of course the caffeine, alcohol, fizzy drinks, we all know about it.
Just had a request to see the slide before with the red writing on the side, if it's easy.
Of course. I mean, I can, when it's saved on YouTube, and people can get these slides, so don't worry about it, but there it is.
Yeah, we'll put the link for the YouTube channel so you can always go back and take the screenshot. Yeah.
So this one, I've put dealing with addiction because it is, when we choose to eat something against ourselves. So we know, okay, I shouldn't be having that. And yet we still have it, yet we still go to the same takeaway place to get it. And of course, there's this thing about eating in moderation. But the actual question is, how often do we eat it? Is it a choice? Are we on autopilot? What's my relationship with the food? And then some of it, it's better to preferably avoid. And we each of us will know our own habits. Next one, food that help the mood. So the first thing to talk about is, why do we have cravings? Why do we have crashes? It's sometimes because if we're not eating enough to keep us fuller for longer, then our energy level drops, and then we start, having crashes, and we crave. And when we crave, we have the tendency to reach for the comfort food, the salty or the sugary ones. So to keep us fuller for longer, the best ones tend to be the plant proteins, high fiber, and what we call healthy fats. So healthy fats would be, your nuts and your seeds. So pumpkin seeds, sesame, walnuts, almonds, all of that. And unfortunately, because of all this media, we kind of take fats as being something that put fat in us. And to be honest, the main reason we gain weight, yes, there are saturated fat, but the main reason is the sugars, the fast sugars, carbohydrates. Because like we said before, carbohydrates, they, when we're not using it as energy, they get stored as fat in our body. So we're thinking about, how is our diet? Is it mainly carbohydrates or mainly, plant proteins? And the reason I say plant protein is because they also have, a lot of veg and fruit. And we tend to tell people, eat a rainbow between 8 to 10. Sounds a lot compared to the 5 a day. But, if you're to make smoothies or soups, you can easily put 4 or 5 vegetables in them. And that includes your nuts and seeds as well. And what do they have? They have what we call antioxidants, or phytonutrients. So different colors have different type of antioxidants. And antioxidants are things that they are against the oxidative stress, so the toxins, or what we call the free radicals. So they help mop it up. And our gut health the gut bacteria, they love these food. They love to feed on vegetable and fruit and fiber. And we've already discussed how a good gut microbiome is, for our health. And just briefly, I would say, we have detoxifying food. We call them, things like cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, cauliflower. You can Google all of these, by the way, lots of information around. But it's just knowing why. And they're good to detoxify the liver and help get rid of toxins. And of course, other specific food, targeted for nerves, cognition, and specific body organs. And the last thing I want to say, we've talked about these cravings, but this saying, there's no such nourishment like happiness. And a lot of people may have experienced that, when we're very happy or we're excited, we're doing our hobby, or we're entertaining or being entertained, sometimes we're not hungry. We want to just carry on and keep doing what we're doing. And some teenagers, their mum might say, calm down, come eat, that's me. And we're so excited in doing what we're doing, we forget about eating. So, what is it then? Why do we get hungry? And why is it that when we're happy? So that's the opposite thing of how mood can affect our hunger. So it's a bit like when I, the person or the being, when I feel full and I feel happy, it does end cravings. I mean, leave cravings, it ends hunger. But of course, we have to eat to sustain ourselves. But the big question is, do I have the ability to make those choices? So I know all of that, but can I choose and maintain control? And the next one, it summarizes it. We've talked about these 3 different things. However, these are the questions to reflect on. Where do I get the strength to make the good choices despite myself? What is the relationship, with I and the food? And how do I break the addiction of the I to the taste? How can I continue and maintain this good practice forever and with joy and happiness, not with, starving and deprivation? And that actually leads to the question, the key question, and I'll come to that, we'll elaborate on that, is who am I? I who wants to eat, I think, I exercise, I choose, the one who says my brain feels foggy, my tummy hurts, who is the I really? And understanding myself, understanding my pattern, my behavior, understanding who I am can actually really help me end this roller coaster in my life, help me feel more in control to make healthy choices, maintain these habits, and stop this autopilot, for me doing things because everybody else is doing it. And just a few quotes I want to put in just to explore this who I am. You are what you eat. And of course, I'm not the food that I eat. I'm not the body or the tummy that hurts. And a better quote is, as you eat, so is your mind. It comes from East, which, an Eastern Sanskrit things. And this is actually true from what we've explored, is how food affects our emotion. But then the best thing is what psychology tells us. They say, good news, you're not your thoughts, because our mind is what we think and we feel. So they say, you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotion, you create those so you can change them, which is really good, because when you feel unhappy, you're like, okay, I'm not this unhappiness, I can be happy. But then we have people, they go through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, talking therapy, to try and help them with their mood. And then after a while, they say, well, it doesn't work anymore. Because that's the reason is, yes, they've told us I'm not my emotion, but who am I? Who am I? And I'm going to talk about this briefly because the key here, the reason I want to say this is because we might notice that we get stressed and then we relax afterwards, then everything is okay, we feel better. But then every time we have this annoying email or this person or situation comes up, we get irritated again, we get triggered. The same fight and flight chemicals, toxins, they keep coming, destroying our body. So just to say, just relaxing and meditating for a little bit may not be enough. We have to find ways to get to the root of what's making us, react like this, especially before any health crisis and, before it gets too late. So it's very important. And to, understanding the real I, who I call the driver of this body, which is the vehicle. So this body is the vehicle, and the vehicle includes, things like the engine and the other electrics like the brain, the nerves, but also some electronics like our thoughts and feelings. And I, the driver, am I driving this car, or how am I driving this car in life? And if the driver itself, if the I'm not in a good state and I forgot who I am, I forgot where my destination is, why I'm doing what I'm doing, I might just be on autopilot and just go here and there and everywhere and be wandering around, or, do what other people are doing because I've forgotten who I am. And no matter how much I polish my car, I clean the car, or polish the body, or even polish the mind and the thoughts with CBT, I've forgotten who am I, so same thing. The other analogy people use is, like a mother looking after the child. So the mother is the I, and I'm the caretaker of the child, the body, the mind, and the emotion, because I really value it. So this body becomes like a valuable instrument for me to look after, to feed, and to take care of. And if the mother doesn't look after herself, then of course they won't be able to, look after the child. And really valuing and understanding the true being who does and feels is equally very, very crucial. So I want to say, for me personally, the reason I say that is, even as many doctors, I have been on this roller coaster of, going to the gym, like I say, yo-yoing with my diet and gym and weight loss. And it's never been long lasting in terms of my self-satisfaction and my happiness, until the penny dropped and I started working on who am I really, and really working from that root. And things very quickly fell into place. And, it's been the longest I've felt, healthier. I've maintained the weight without, actually eating more, and maintaining the self-satisfaction as well. And lastly, a little thing I want to say is, knowing the truth about myself, the I, who is not defined by the conditioning of society, not defined by life, by what happened to them, and all the masks they have to wear, a child, a student, a spouse, parent, colleague, or an employee, they are just roles. I'm not defined by the mistakes I did, because not dealing well with my mistakes can lead to self-criticism and hopelessness. And I now know I'm not those emotions either, because giving up too quickly is what stops us from continuing our journey. And like Nelson Mandela said, the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall. So the real I feels free and is able to choose and tread through life more enjoyably. And I suppose this is what inner space, we offer people to get to the root of the problem, rather than say, just sit down, relax for a bit, you'll feel better, but then you go to work, you get that email again, and then you're pulling your hair out and your body's releasing those toxins. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So full and so rich. And I think many of us will enjoy listening back. I enjoyed the way you linked it all together. So we have this opportunity for some questions, and I have a couple here already, and welcoming in any more. Are there any natural ways to heal thyroid if it's underactive? That's one question that's coming.
Yeah, there are many natural ways to heal, for thyroid. Of course, on this platform, I won't be able to get to the details of it, because we really have to get to know your body And it could be many reasons, if there's some trauma, whether we need detoxification. But, thyroid is very linked with iodine that we're taking. It's very linked with selenium. So that's the vitamins we take. So when we say iodine, it's the tablets. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, you may not be getting iodine. So you may need to be on tablets. But also the toothpaste that we use, it's got things like fluorine. And this actually, it stops iodine from getting in our body. So worth thinking of. There's protein called tyrosine, which helps the thyroid. There is iron. Iron is very important to help with thyroid as well. So yeah, I mean, this is just basic. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to do all of that. You really need to get to know who you are and what your body does. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Now, one question. What kind of effect does garlic and onion have exactly on the mood and on the gut?
Mm-hmm. So there are two things here, and this will be more of an experiment for each of us because there are no big kind of guidelines, because everything here we want to have research and, but the research of what people do, and then we'll write a paper on it. But I find everybody's different. You might not, it won't be individualized. What you feel may not be necessarily the truth for another. So some people say garlic and onion is anti-inflammatory, so it helps with the immune system, it helps with infection. But on the other hand, when we're cutting onion, for example, our eyes start to water, and we're like, why is our eyes watering? And our eyes is part of our brain. So basically, if our eyes is watering, what's happening to the brain? So we do know it does irritate the brain and the nervous system. So it's the balance, right? So it's what's important for you. So it works for the heart and immune system, but it does not work for our brain and our mood, anger, irritation. And personally, there's so many other food that is so helpful for, what we call inflammation and in the heart, that we don't need to, we don't, if we know there's side effects and benefits, so we have to make the choice. But experiment with it. Yeah, experiment for a week and see how you feel, but replace it with other anti-inflammatory food. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. So an interesting area, what's your opinion on eating meat for health?
Mm-hmm. So again, with meat, I mean, to be honest, now there's so many research, but what I would say, so meat itself, it's an inflammatory food. So it causes inflammation to the body. So a lot of problems we have, so, skin rashes or gut problems, IBS, everything, any disease we think about, it is to do with inflammation. So people who come to me with like skin problems or any inflammation, I normally say, why don't you cut out all dairy all dairy and meat just for 1 week and see what happens. And a lot of them come out with very positive findings. Their skin is glowing, their hair is growing really well. So it's worth considering. The other thing, when you look at research, of course, they talk about the saturated fat. It's full of saturated fat, red meat, for example, so increased risk of cardiovascular disease as well, and strokes and all. How we produce the meat, how much antibiotics and chemicals and all these additives, as if we don't have enough in our plants and what we buy, but how we produce the meat. But the other thing I would say, of course, before I get to that, some people talk about earth resources. So, we use about 4 kilograms of feeding for the animal to only get 1 kilogram of protein. So we're wasting 4 kilograms just for 1 kg. Why are we not eating the 4 kilograms ourselves? And they eat plants, animals eat plants. So, and we know that, anyway, that's the other ethical thing with all the carbon dioxide and, things. But things that I think personally is, I normally think, let's think of a couple wanting to adopt a child because they don't have a kid. So they'll look at all the medical history of this child. And if the person tells them, oh, this child, their parents were addicted, or they had a lot of antibiotics, we don't know what effect they're going to have on this baby. We don't know when they grow up, how they're going to be like. We don't know about the traumas. Of course, the couple won't go for that kid. They would go for somebody who's healthy and who know they won't have a problem. With animals, even though we say organic, they were well looked after and all, we don't know about, how many times have they had a virus? Did they have any trauma? we don't have psychology in animal world, but when they left their mum, are they carrying some trauma that's caused them to have autoimmune disease? Did they have any thyroid problem? Did they have any liver problem? We don't test, animals don't have health checks, but we're not adopting these animals, we're eating them. So we are becoming what diseases they have, and we're maybe taking the trauma that they had. So again, like I said, this is personal. There's nothing to prove it, but it will be a proof for yourself if you choose to experiment with it, even for a week, and see what happens. So yeah, these are the thoughts.
Absolutely. I started a vegetarian diet in Southeast Asia just because I saw with my own eyes the trauma, because everything is more honest out there. And for that reason, I felt very much that it was needed. Maybe for those who are vegetarian or vegan, should they take supplements to ensure adequate iron, such as B12? And what about extra vitamin D to improve immune system and enhance the mood?
So vitamin D, definitely, because this is what the NHS tells people. They say at least 1,000 units a day, everybody. But from a nutrition point of view, we actually tell people it could be up to 4,000. Sometimes we even give 10,000 or 20. Again, this is not advice for anybody. Don't just go and start taking 4,000. You have to seek medical advice. But the reason is, here in the UK, even on a summer, the latitude of the UK is very high up. Even in the summer, we may not get enough sunlight. And vitamin D, we call it vitamin, but it's actually more like a steroid. It improves our kind of vitality. It works on blood sugar. It works on energy, and of course, immune system, the biggest thing, because we found a link. People with autoimmune, especially MS, vitamin D level is low. Lots of research. In terms of taking supplements, it's very individualized to your body. We do know that the soil quality, where we get it, may not be good enough for the plant to have absorbed some of the minerals. So even though we may be eating raw, we may not get enough of the zinc and selenium and all of that. So it's worth maybe researching what are the food that are higher in whatever we need to eat, and maybe don't make it a lifelong thing. Maybe in spurts for 3 months, have it, experiment with it. So say somebody who wants to have zinc, for example, which is good for the skin and immune system and cough and cold. We know Brazil nuts is really high in zinc. So you can start just one a day. You might start taking that. But these are examples, and other things to go into would be, again, there's a lot of research. So some of the food, so say if we're having vitamin C, it can enhance our iron absorption. So people with low iron, make sure you have whatever plant you're having or iron supplement, but with vitamin C. So that's one example. There's so many others. Yeah.
Yeah, people are being motivated to ask more questions. Are you okay if we go on another few minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of come to time. So people are finding it very helpful. Is it possible to help with asthma through diet changes?
Yes. So any conditions we think about, everything can be, I won't say treated completely, but can be helped. So asthma is an allergy. It falls under the allergy pattern, and how we said our immune system. So allergy is to do with the immune system. So we said 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So yes, and people who have asthma, eczema, hay fever, they're all the same family. We call it atopy. So people who come to me, I say, look after the gut. But there's also a diet called low histamine diet. Maybe have a look at that. Low histamine diet. So it's diet that will help with these condition. Yeah.
That's great. What are your thoughts on using a microwave? Does that have an effect on the body?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't know about it yet. I'm still studying as well. So when I know about it, I'll come to you.
We'll come back to you on that. Someone is asking about alkaline food, that they've heard that we should eat more alkaline food, but then there's different conflicting information. She wondered if you have any helpful websites or sources.
I don't have a website yet, but I mean, it's good to understand why, because a lot of the food we eat is inflammatory, So, we talk about meat anyway, but so many food inflammatory, and inflammatory is to do with acid. So animal products, when we eat it, it's acid causing. And acid, what it does, it can leach out the alkaline from our body. So it can leach out calcium from our body, which seems contradictory. We are asked to drink a lot of milk to have our bone, but this milk, if it's very acidic, then it will leach out calcium from our body and actually cause osteoporosis. Doesn't mean not to drink milk, but it means maybe moderation, but also plant protein like almonds high in milk. So yeah, so the reason we say alkaline diet is probably to counteract the acid. And I mean, again, it's individualized and everything in moderation, but also inquire about your own body. This is not advice. It's we need to find out. Mm-hmm.
That's an important thread, because that's why we can get confused. And perhaps it's paying more attention, and that's where that self-reflection is also helpful. Couple more questions, if it's all right. Carbonated drinks. This person saying they really like it, but wondering if it is not good for the gut.
Mm-hmm. So carbonated drink, they have got, if they are colored, they've definitely got coloring. They might have sweeteners, they will have additives. So regardless of the fizzy property, but just all these additives, there's so many research now with regard to nerve irritation, with regard to headaches, depression, cognition, memory disturbance. Lots, if you look on Google, there's so many actual research of how it affects. So you know how we talk about this addiction, because they want to sell this carbonated drink for you. So you want, it's not heroin or morphine, but you are addicted to it. So it's about understanding that, yes, I am craving for it. So one way is reduce the quantity, maybe, what people with diabetes, they say it takes about 7 days for our taste buds to change. So it's not impossible. We can change our taste buds. So we can maybe start on something a bit less, cut it down, and then try different things. But it does get better when you recognize it.
It's really about taking responsibility, isn't it? Like in the US, they're having vending machines in schools, and the schools don't have power because they're getting money from it, and the governments, even though it's seen as not good, children getting addicted, and it's having a direct effect on weight. Of course, we probably have almost the same here.
I want to say as well, to add, it's not always about willpower, because sometimes we think, oh, I have to have willpower to control myself. Sometimes it's actually the body. Craving means the body is lacking some nutrients, there's some lacking of nutrition. And sometimes if we've not eaten enough to feel full, or if you know how we talk about I, the being, if I, the being, I'm not feeling full, that's when we go for those cravings. So going to the root of the problem, one is eat well, how we talk about the plant protein, the fiber, the fat. Like I have a good big breakfast and I go to work and I don't feel hungry up until it's 2 p.m. And I used to be the one who would get really irritated with patients and very angry, and I'd starve and crave for food, but I don't anymore. That's the fullness of how it helps. So yes, it's not always about control, it's eating right.
That's helpful. Maybe a quick follow-up question. Someone is asking about carbonated water because they've heard it's good for digestion and health. Is it true, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I would say that have a look at the label at the back. So digestion is, why do you need to have carbonated water to help your digestion? It means there's something wrong with the digestion. So find out why. A lot of it is to do, if you Google this low stomach acid, it will talk to you about how to cure it, celery juice, cabbage juice, all sorts. Then you may not need carbonated water because your digestion is good. But with the carbonated water, have a look at the label at the back and see how many colorings, how many additives. There will be a lot of E numbers, E120, E this, E that, and Google those numbers and see what are the effects on your body and your organs.
Maybe if it's plain, it's better, but still simplicity seems to be often the best. I think you already had a slide on the foods to improve low mood. Is that right? And
yeah,
So we'll put the link so you can access the recording to review that list. And maybe one final question. Does eating organic help? It doesn't help the wallet, but does it help the gut?
Yeah, of course it does, because we do know what we call non-organic. So that will be the one which will have pesticides and chemicals and all sorts. And there's a lot of research to say that however much we wash them, sometimes those chemicals can get into our body and they can irritate the nerve, they can cause problems to the microbiome and all sorts. So there's this, if you Google this thing called clean 15 and dirty dozen, it tells you about what are the clean 15 food that even if you buy normal, they're not organic, but they're still clean because they don't absorb a lot of the pesticides. And then the dirty dozens, they're the ones definitely absorbs in large amounts. I can't remember all of them in my top of my head, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think you touched on as well about the happiness and the nourishment, and perhaps also cooking within that peaceful state, meditative. And I've known friends who've seen a big transformation from when before food became a religion in a way, but also using meditation, it can be also the way things are done, which you also highlighted. So yeah, any final thoughts, Namrata? And then I know we're going to finish with some reflective music, but any final tips or insights?
Well, I think we've discussed everything, but the one thing I'd say, of course, it's important to look after the body. How we say the body is the vehicle, it's the car. And I used to be like that, the food I need to eat, what are the supplements, everything is body, or mind or emotions. But it does take a lot because we need time. That's the thing. We are human doings. We've stopped being human being. We don't want to sit down and reflect on really why is it I do what I do. Because once we get that and we focus on the being, everything else naturally fall into place. Then we don't have to struggle and battle which supplement or my body, my organ. It's interesting, but I know it's easier to take a tablet, a quick fix because we don't have time. So making that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it pays dividends. It saves you years. Yeah. You might even grow younger.
Yeah, we could have a follow-up talk about it. But some of the comments, one is it was so helpful and interesting. It made me want to take more care and be kind to myself with the food. So I think the two probably go together. The more mindful we are, the more present, the more we're kind of noticing the signs, being our own, responding. I think that was excellent. So thank you. Very helpful, and we will surely create another opportunity, and do get in touch if you have any follow-up questions. We've put in the chat where you can get the recording, and if you're interested in any of the other talks, courses which Namrata touched on, how to look after the being. Thank you. Thanks to everyone. Thank you, Namrata.
My pleasure.